right. So, before we get started, I'm going to do some shout outs because I haven't live streamed in a while. So, and we're going to be here for a while. Not like Sofia time. Not like 4.5
Yeah,
hours.
not.
Where YouTube can't even upload the whole stream at once. But we'll be here for an hour and some change.
Let me know. Let me know when you share it, so then I can retweet.
Yeah, you'll be tagged.
Oh right, okay.
Marcus, what's going on?
Oh, I'm gonna have it open so then I can take note. Oh, I see you. No.
Nigel Solars. What's going on? Derek Schaefer.
Hey, what's up?
Crazy. If anyone's seen Pac-Man's Bolivia video, nope, but I'm pretty sure I know what it
No,
says.
I have.
Don't actually understand how David Pac-Man still has any.
I don't know how he's independent media. Like, who's
not
paying him?
He had a show on a satellite on like a dish network or a direct TV channel before. Yeah. He played that, he played the game and getting paid. Like, Pac-Man is the worst kind of neoliberal because he actually still calls himself progressive, and then people actually still
At least he doesn't say that he's a socialist. At least he.
Yeah, well, I don't expect him to say that because I don't say I'm a socialist either, but I also don't like labels. So there's that.
Mm-hmm.
I support a lot of socialist policies though, but I don't like blanket labeling myself for anything because I'm not for open borders yet. So that apparently disqualifies me from being a socialist. Although I'm pretty sure that's not socialist policy.
No.
People keep conflating it as if it is, but it's not a socialist policy.
No.
That's weird. That's why it's weird.
Yeah, it doesn't show you the time.
I'm looking at the live feed right now. It says elapsed time. 2 minutes and 12 seconds. Who else we got in here? Patrick McCormick.
I don't see that.
What's going on? Matthew Perot. I'm probably Perot. He's paid by independent contractors. Get it? He's independent media, but only because he's paid by independent contractors. That's funny. Laugh at their joke. Matt's joke was hilarious. Who else we got in here?
Open Borders is actually libertarian.
Say what? Why would we be just throwing the word? I feel like leftists have gained this habit of throwing the word libertarian out at everybody they don't like that claims to be a leftist. Like, you can't just throw libertarian out every time you get mad at somebody. It's not how that word works. They're legit. The reasons that people are mad at libertarians is because of like their just vacuous understanding of how the economy actually works, and how they ignore certain issues and think that the free market could save the world in every single scenario. Like, so you calling, for example, if you're one of those people who's like, Yang's a libertarian, which is an argument that I would entertain, but only if you are going to speak to me with the facts, not say, because of his UBI. Because no, and they say it's because of the VAT tax situation, but the issue is the VAT tax is not libertarian policy, it's a democratic socialist policy to make sure that no one can escape on paying their taxes. Now, the VAT tax would not work in this country, nor is it necessary in this country because the VAT tax is only introduced in most countries because they don't have other ways to make that type of money to prop up their socialist programs or their social network or safety nets, their social safety nets. Like, for example, Denmark has pretty high taxes, like I think 38, almost 40%, but also does Denmark have the agriculture of the United States or Brazil, Bolivia? No. Do they have any major economic resources that could be used in every single country and is necessary for life to go on? No. So Denmark has to take the necessary steps to make sure that they can maintain their social safety nets, but also account for the fact that they don't have the resources that a lot of other countries do. So, but the Bahamas actually use VAT tax.
Really?
Yeah, they use VAT tax. And makes sense because it's the Bahamas. Like, where are they going to get? They don't have as many people to tax. They don't have that many people living there. So your VAT tax makes sure that when I go to the Bahamas, I'm contributing my part to the country in the transaction. Same thing, you know. I think the Netherlands has it too. So like it's not a libertarian policy, but people just throw out the word libertarian every time they feel like it. It's a little irritating.
Look, someone
Tulsi's new Joe Rogan segment has over 1 million views. Holy crap, that's crazy.
How long did it take for Bernie to get 1 million?
Same
Was that
night.
just like a day?
Same night.
Oh,
Yeah. He had like 8 million in a week, some crazy shit like that. It's Bernie.
Yeah.
I expected that.
Can
Can I turn up my volume? I feel like I'm pretty loud.
Your volume is loud, yeah.
Make sure, are you using a desktop
Speakers.
or a Droid? Because y'all be having some problems. Hate labels. Can we all be fellow citizens? Absolutely. See, my thing about labels is I only like using labels when it's appropriate to use them. So if I'm just talking to this person to the left of me and this person to the right of me, and one might be a conservative or one might be a leftist, and I'm just somewhere in between, then I don't understand why I have to say, well, I'm a leftist and that's why I believe, or I got to prove how left I am every conversation I have. That's the problem, is that people want to lead with the label first instead of letting them, you know, if somebody misdefines you, which happens all the time. I mean, it is what it is. Like by the world standards, for example, like Crystal Ball called Bernie Sanders the only real leftist in the race, which I cannot stress to you how wrong that is. But she says that because of his policies, but specifically domestic policy. I think that you need more than just domestic policy to be the most left. But either way, I digress. If you look around the world where there are multi-party systems, Bernie's a centrist. But we apply the label leftist and progressive.
Do you know that he wants to make the corporate tax rate, he wants to just bring it back, or no, capital gains tax, bring it back to 35%, which was what it was under the Obama administration. Like that's what his.
Yeah, but he also wants to get rid of all the loopholes. That was something that was talked about.
Fair enough.
He's he talked about that last election. That I just want y'all to pay our fair share. 35% is actually a fair share, but the problem is that they end up finding loopholes to get out of their fair share. So that is the biggest issue. But yeah, I just don't like when we have to label people. Basically we have two scenarios where somebody will use their label to attack someone else, or use their label to hopefully help you ignore all the bullshit they're about to sell you. If I'm going to compare somebody's individual experience, right? If I'm talking about a situation with police, then if I'm speaking about it like maybe police brutality, I will then say, well, I am a black man and I've dealt with this, because I'm using my quote unquote label as a black man. I'm not using the black label. I'm using the experience that is attached to that. It's not the same thing as I'm a leftist. Listen to me. I'm a leftist, so you know I believe in these things. Because how many progressives say one thing and then behave completely differently? So we'll give it about 1 more minute before we get started. Labels help divide and conquer the narrative. Yeah, it's true. There's some truth to that. I mean, think of how valuable labels are when Donald Trump can literally be an elitist Democrat for his entire life, and the Democrats try to pretend that all of his values are just Republican values. Nah, y'all love that man. Remember, he ain't changed. That's the same guy. Y'all was just okay with it when it was behind closed doors. He's having the same conversations as y'all was having, but now he's having them out in the public. And y'all pretending like y'all don't like this man whenever he's out here telling the world, hey, if they try to get Nancy Pelosi out of the Speaker of the House, I'm going to campaign for her. What? I like Nancy. She's doing a fantastic job. Yeah. Blue no matter who. Get on my damn nerves. That Tulsi Syria video back 3 years ago is pure gold. I know it.
Which
I
one?
used
The
the thumbnail from
the
one of her
West
videos
End.
from when she was visiting Syria.
Oh! I
Oh
thought you were
man,
talking about
that
another one.
whole that thing that it just gets you in your feelings.
And you know that a lot of it was like veterans organizations, like anti-war veterans organizations, they ended up using her footage. I don't know if you know that.
Mm-hmm. That's why Lee Stranahan, who was a Republican and a former Trump supporter, he actually said like he went to Syria. He was exposing this, but at the time, he didn't know necessarily that it was bigger than Obama, or he did, but like it was mostly because he was going there to figure out what Obama was talking about. Like, should we be here? What is our role here? And he exposed a lot. And his whole YouTube channel got taken down because of it.
Yeah.
Before it was,
dude. I just realized someone. So, Rose's New Beginning. She said, "Where's my Tulsi poster?" And I just noticed.
Where's your Tulsi poster?
Fuck
Did your mom
that
take it
bitch.
down?
Huh?
Did your mom take it down?
Yeah. Fuck that bitch.
Grimy!
I hate her.
Damn. You don't hate your mother. Mothers can just be frustrating a lot.
She literally didn't even bother to like put it like where I sleep on the couch or something. Fucking
She hit it.
moved it.
I'm tired of hearing about Tulsi in this house.
Fuck her.
All right. So, I guess we can go ahead and get the show on the road. Already. Let's get started, peeps. So thank you all so much for tuning into this live stream segment of Mikasa Sukasa. Of course, as always, I am your humble host, Niko House, and I am once again here with Sofia Zaldivar.
Hey.
What is going on, Sofia? How you doing?
I'm doing well.
Are you? Really
I
quick,
am.
before we get started, you mind telling everybody about your recent experience canvassing in New Hampshire?
Yes. It went well. Like it.
Girl, you're not doing an
It
episode
usually-
of you are like you doing show and tell. Well, I had this Tulsi poster.
It was good. Like it was good. Like I saw some Amy signs. That I saw the most Amy signs.
Wow.
And then I
what
saw
area in New
some
Hampshire was
Pete
this?
signs. We went to Manchester and somewhere else.
Okay. Do you think that Amy is a little bit more of a threat in New Hampshire than what anybody is talking about?
Mm-hmm.
Was it like that the last time you went to, where you saw a lot of Amy signs?
I had seen one before, but yeah, someone said, "Did you go with Eileen?" Yeah, I did. And we went with a couple of other people. But in terms of the canvassing, everyone there who knows of Tulsi has a fairly favorable view of her. Like I've never gotten. Well, I knocked on someone who was a Pete supporter. That kind of ended there, but. No one says like, "Oh, I hate her. She's an Assad apologist. She's a Russian agent." No one says that. It's always just.
That's I feel like that's a YouTube microcosm, or not
Yeah,
YouTube, social
and-
media microcosm.
Yeah.
Most of my friends don't care about. Syria at
But
all.
there a lot of people there, if they're liberal leaning, they're just vote blue no matter who. Like, a lot of people are just like, I'm not paying attention until it condenses down, like, to
Yeah, it's a really weird
only a Democrat
take to have.
and a Republican. Like they're not really interested in participating in the primaries, which sucks. But
I mean,
what are
in
you
their
gonna
mind,
do?
they're
I
like,
don't blame-
have
I don't-
control
I
of it
don't-
Anyway.
I don't blame people for being like that, But-
I do. Hey, to get out there and get involved. And
Well,
don't-
yeah, but I don't blame them. I don't blame them because a lot of people are just really sick of the political culture that we're in,
Yeah,
And
it's,
so just like really distasteful. But
I got tired of watching
it just-
WWE for the same exact reason, so I don't blame them. Speaking of which,
Yeah.
you know what the debates reminded me of? So it's like watching the WWE, like where it's supposed to be everybody's acting, right? You're supposed to look the part, but you're supposed to be overly acting. Except for Tulsi doesn't get the memo, and she goes in there pulling out her best MMA moves, taking elbows to the face and putting people in choke holes, and they're like, "We playing, it's just acting." And she, got like 8 people. That's what it reminds me of. Like Tulsi didn't get the memo that it's the WWE, and she's just in there hitting people with cross chokes and shit like that. But so overall, you got positive feedback. So what do they say? You hear anything about Bernie from any of the people while you were canvassing?
Everyone says Bernie is too old.
Really?
I've only met one person, but he was younger. That's why he supports both Bernie and Tulsi. But everyone else says Bernie's too old, and they have the same thing to say about Biden as well.
That's weird.
Like that they need young people. That we need young people to be representing.
I mean, if that young person's gonna be Tulsi, then I have no problem with it.
Yeah, right.
But it's just weird because I feel like it's always the middle-aged or older people that are like, Bernie's too old. And I'm just like, huh?
Yeah. Well, because they are themselves old, so
they're thinking about it from their own.
As if, they feel as if they aren't qualified enough to endure a job like that. That is so. I mean, it's just the stakes are so high with a job like that.
I just find it weird though.
There's so much pressure.
I do feel like there's like this level of projection that comes from some people, where they think that because they don't have the capacity to act or to fulfill a job description like that must mean that Bernie doesn't have it or that somebody else doesn't have it. If we're talking about Biden,
well, I feel like it just like comparing like them and their friends, they probably just feel like,
it's a confirmation bias. They're basing it off of their experiences. It's like when people are like, police brutality isn't real. Why? Well, I'm a white man. I've never seen police brutality, so it can't be real. Yeah. Like, no, your experience is not the same as everybody else's. And I think I do think it should be said that Bernie is an anomaly when it comes to his health.
I mean, he's better than Biden.
He's way more healthier than Biden.
I don't blame people.
I'll be real with you. If you ask me to perform a test of my cognitive functions and then ask Bernie to perform the exact same test, he will probably beat me. Like in just basic cognitive functionality. He doesn't stutter seemingly at all. You know, he's very, very sharp-minded, very quick on his feet. He seems to be actually more energetic than he was before the heart attack. So I just feel like it's weird that that's the narrative that's been pushed out, because that wasn't the narrative. I mean, it was like some people saying that, but it wasn't a dominant narrative until maybe the heart attack, but also in the beginning of the election. Before Biden announced, that was the issue, but then Biden announced and then he just stopped talking about it. So I wonder how much of that is conditioning. Okay, cool. Appreciate you. When are you supposed to be heading back up to New Hampshire to canvass?
I think we're trying to go next weekend, but yeah, we're not sure yet.
Man,
I hope
Sofia stays in New Hampshire, y'all. She's not.
I would stay there. I'd much rather live there than well. If I could drive, I would. I would definitely be there right now.
I would not live in New Hampshire. It's too cold. I'm not down with any type of cold. All right. So for our next topic of discussion, I don't know if you all got the email or the update, but Tulsi just released a new resolution regarding Syria. Now, the title of the legislation is called H-Con Res 77. The long name of it is directing the president pursuant to Section 5C of the War Powers Resolution to remove United States Armed Forces from hostilities in the Syrian Arab Republic that have not been authorized by Congress. That's a long form. Now, the short name of it is... Actually, I don't know if there is a short name. Let me see what she called it. The short name of it is... it's just resolution to withdraw U.S. troops from guarding oil fields in Syria. Now, before we go into the resolution, I do want to talk really quick about what Tulsi has to say about this legislation. On her congressional Twitter account, she had a lot to say about it. Our troops put our lives on the line to support and defend the Constitution of the United States and ensure the safety and security of the American people. President Trump's deployment of U.S. troops to secure Syrian oil fields that do not belong to us with talks of welcoming private oil corporations to take the oil. It's unconstitutional and a violation of international law. Syria's natural resources belong to the Syrian people. That's actually really huge. I'm glad that she said that, because I do, which I still think is unfounded, but because, you know, they're only going off the sign, but I'll stay here. I do hear people try to make the argument that Tulsi doesn't talk enough about the other people involved in these situations, or who are victims of these situations. Although I can point to a dozen times where I've heard her talk about the other people, but if they don't hear it when they want to, then it never got said. I know how it goes. All right. So she goes on to say, Congress must fulfill its constitutional mandate and vote for this resolution to bring our troops home from Syria. In too many cities across America, families... Oh, that's a different... Damn, she introduced another bill?
Mm-hmm. It was the food desert.
She also,
one,
just
right?
as a fun fact, she also introduced a bill for... Give me a second. It's coming up right now. To boost urban agriculture. Mm-hmm. Urban Agriculture, Healthy Food, and Entrepreneur Act. Bruh, Tulsi is own it. I don't know how the hell she find time for this. So before we get into the nitty gritty of the bill, what do you think about just the overall premise of this resolution?
Well, it's basically the same resolution that she had introduced, I think at the end of October, if I'm not mistaken. I think the 31st.
Oh, beginning of November.
But it was already the beginning of November. Okay, whenever
like the first
it was.
Or the second.
Really? Okay, I thought it was. Never mind. But regardless, my only concern with it was a really good resolution. But when I covered this, my only concern was the fact that it.
We're going to get into that.
Sorry, no. Okay.
But I want just the premise of the resolution. Tulsi's premise from her mouth. What do you think about that? Like, the unconstitutionality about it, how silent everybody is about the unconstitutionality of what's going on. Not only on this level, there's a lot of different levels that this is, that it's unconstitutional. But what do you just think about her, to summarize what she tweeted about the resolution?
I also really liked how she talked about international law too, because I think not enough people talk about that. But overall, I think it's a really good resolution. It shows that she is not just talk. She's actually all about action. And when she sees a problem, she doesn't go and just tweet about it and complain about something that Trump said or something. She actually writes a bill to resolve that. And again, I had already covered, the bill in terms of the language in it, but I liked how she referenced, words coming out of Trump's mouth and directly used that against him. And it's just, we shouldn't need to be writing resolutions like this. Like, we shouldn't need to rely on politicians writing resolutions like this. It should kind of be
wars.
Yeah, to not guard the resources of another country that country would use to rebuild their own country, which we destroyed. Like, it's just this cycle that we're in where we think we can just go to any country, exploit their people and their resources for our own personal gain. It's just like a total lack of respect. And
this is siege warfare. What we're actually seeing, and if I recall, you can correct me if I'm wrong, isn't siege warfare against the what is it called? The peace treaty that we have. Wow, I really cannot remember it. I think it's in Sydney. What is the name of the treaty that everybody references all the time? You know what I'm talking about? It was done after World War II, I think. That says we can't.
Oh. No, I can't remember it now.
Oh my God.
Nuremberg.
I don't know if it's Nuremberg, but that's one of them. If somebody remembers it in the chat, just Geneva Convention. Thank God.
Geneva.
God Almighty.
Yeah, it's like, yeah.
Oh man, look, brain fart. But the Geneva Convention, I believe, says that siege warfare is illegal because it literally is just meant to hurt the people. It doesn't really do much to the government generally. So that would be like when we held Venezuelans' food supply from getting to them, that was siege warfare, and that was actually a war crime. what we did. When we held medical supplies from getting to the Venezuelan people, that was siege warfare, and that was a war crime. And yet, once again, we're the same ones.
And it's literally murder. Like, and I went to that propaganda event with Lee Camp, and one of the things that he mentioned was like, if you stole someone's medicine and their food, and then as a result, they died, that people would obviously consider that to be murder. But then when it's our government doing that to other people through sanctions, it's just normal policy. And it's really disgusting, what we do around the world, because it isn't just with Syria either, but Syria is just one of the most explicit examples.
Okay, so I do want to get into this legislation real quick. So by the time we get to this, you'll probably be asking the same questions that we asked, which is when are there going to be more co-sponsors? One. It's actually says that Tulsi reintroduced this. So remember how we said we talked about the fact that she edited it. She reintroduced it on 11/21, and there are currently no co-sponsors. So that's problematic to me. So the legislation goes on to say, the Section 1, the removal of the United States Armed Forces from hostilities in the Syrian Arab Republic that have not been authorized by Congress. Oh, did not realize that we were going to go there. All right. A, findings. Congress finds the following. Congress has the sole power to declare war under Article 1, Section 8 of the Constitution. It's true. Congress has not declared war with respect to or provided any statutory authorization for the United States military participation in any activity related to securing, guarding, possessing, profiting off of, or developing the oil fields in the Syrian Arab Republic. 3. President Donald Trump stated on October 27th, 2019 regarding Syria that we are leaving soldiers to secure the oil. Now, we may have to fight for the oil. That's okay. Maybe somebody else wants the oil, in which case they'll have a hell of a fight. And that it can help us because we should be able to take some also. And what I intend to do, perhaps, is to make a deal with ExxonMobil or one of our great companies to go in there and do it properly. Right now, it's not big. It's big oil underground, but it's not big oil up top. That man is so coherent sometimes, incoherent. So the next section says, when asked by CNN on October 28, 2019, whether the United States will prevent any Russian or Syrian government forces from gaining access to the oil, Secretary of Defense Esper said, the short answer is yes, it presently does. So we're literally keeping Syria's oil away from Syria. I wonder what that sounds like. I wonder if Iran has any advice to offer in this regard. So number 5 says Section 8C of the War Powers Resolution defines the introduction of the United States Armed Forces to include the assignment of members of such armed forces to command, coordinate, participate in the movement of, or accompany the regular or irregular military forces of any foreign country or government when such military forces are engaged or there exists an imminent threat that such forces will become engaged in hostilities. Section 5C says the War Powers Resolution states that anytime the United States Armed Forces are engaged in hostilities outside of the territory of the United States, it possesses its possessions and territories without a declaration of war or specific statutory authorization, such forces shall be removed by the president if Congress so directs. I just wanted to add that up until that point, I'm just looking, side by side, both resolutions, the one that she introduced originally and then this one. Mm-hmm. Up until this point, everything is the same. So I just wanted to point that out. So, then it goes on to Part B, the removal of armed forces. Pursuant to Section 5C, the War Powers Resolution, Congress hereby directs the President to remove the United States Armed Forces from hostilities in the Syrian Arab Republic, except for the United States Armed Forces engaged in operations directed at Al-Qaeda or associated forces, not later than 60 days after the date of the adoption of this concurrent resolution unless unless a declaration of war or specific authorization of such use of the United States Armed Forces has been enacted into law. Rule of construction: nothing in this concurrent resolution may be construed to limit, expand, or otherwise modify the authorization and use of military force. And it is nothing in this concurrent resolution may be construed with never mind. It's still continuing on the last section. My bad. So it says it's not going to limit the AUMF or anything consistent with Section 8A1 of the War Powers Resolution to authorize use of military force. So before I give my analysis, what do you think? What are your initial thoughts?
Sorry, for anyone who was watching this, I was confused because I was actually reading the exact same resolution.
No, I was saying
I thought that I had pulled it up.
You were reading it. No. Oh Lord,
it's
Jesus.
good. Yeah. That's why I was like, wait a second. I literally pulled up the old one because the old one specified. It said except for the troops that are there through the AUMF, right? But then this one is different because it actually specifies except for those engaged in operations directed at Al Qaeda.
Yeah.
So I wanted to pull up the text because, like I said, up until that point, as far as I know, but now that I'm thinking about it, I don't think that she had mentioned that CNN bit.
No, that was added. I want to say that she added
right.
That. The first part wasn't there, but the CNN thing, I don't believe that was part of it.
She actually took number 4 in that list. Before she had Mark Esper, that he had said U.S. troops will remain positioned in this strategic area to deny ISIS access to those vital resources, and he continued there. But then this time she specifically changed it to prevent any Russian or Syrian government forces from gaining access to the oil. I think the reason why she did that was to specify that it was really just about Syrian the Syrian or Russian government rather than paying fealty to, we're denying ISIS the access to it. I think she wanted to just leave it at, yes, we are denying.
Ooh, that's actually really good. I didn't think about that.
Yeah, because if she puts that in there, then I'm assuming that she would think that they could just be like, well, no, he's right. We are keeping it there to prevent ISIS from accessing it. So I think she tried to just simplify it to remove that. She actually also removed the part, which was one of my favorite parts, which was the oil, natural resources, and land in Syria belong to the Syrian people, not the United States.
You're talking about Section 6.
Mm-hmm.
It was our Part 6. She said something similar, but not the same. What did she say in this new one? So it's Section 6 on the old resolution. Says depriving the Syrian people from the economic benefit of their natural resources will inhibit them from rebuilding their country. It is not humane or in the national security interests of the United States. So basically she was making a humanity plea, but unfortunately when you're talking about legislation and you're going to argue unconstitutionality, the truth of the matter is that it's considered fluff and it will be used to strike down. So unfortunately.
Yeah, I also wanted to point out that Max Blumenthal actually just tweeted about this. So I'm glad that, because I don't think he had tweeted about the previous one. So I'm glad that this one gained enough traction where now they're talking about it. So, but then now I'm just going through this, and I just wanted to read the part in the old version, which is Section B, which says, Congress hereby directs the President to remove United States Armed Forces from hostilities in the Syrian Arab Republic, except United States Armed Forces engaged in operations authorized under the authorization for use of military force.
Yes.
That was my issue. That was my issue that I had pointed out when I originally had covered this. I said, she also changed it, not later than 30 days after the date of the adoption of this concurrent resolution, unless and until a declaration of war. Okay. But then this one, it specifically says those engaged in operations directed at Al Qaeda or associated forces not later than 60 days after the date. So she added 30 days afterwards.
So there's two things here I want to bring out. So the resolution is clearly, it's really good. And it's a huge step in the right direction. But when we're talking about the awareness that it grows, like, hey, we are here for one thing and one thing only. These people are smearing me as an Assad apologist. They're smearing me as a Russian asset. It's nothing to do with Russia. If I'm a Russian asset for calling this out, then I guess that everybody's a Russian asset for saying what was true about Venezuela and saying what was true about the strategic positioning of Iraq, for calling out our attempts to manufacture consent to go to war with Iran. Like, it's the same thing over and over and over and over.
But then
again.
it's only Syria that's inappropriate.
But when you talk about Syria, if you say we're here for oil and our troops shouldn't be there, you're an Assad apologist. Like, when we're there literally guarding their oil fields from them using it, it makes it very clear as to why we were there and why they would do things like manufacture a lie about chemical weapons attacks committed by the Syrian government. And we're going to get into that. But so there's that. So I'm glad that she's once again creating that awareness, and kind of every week, it seems, the conversation gets taken off the rails and we get distracted in various ways, even her supporters, because you have to defend her from nonsense. She has to defend herself from nonsense. So the conversations get derailed, but this brings it back. And it's like, look, supposedly y'all hate Trump, right? Supposedly we want to call out Trump for working against the interests of the American people. Remember, supposedly Trump was a national security threat.
Traitor.
He's a traitor. Supposedly we don't like his foreign policy. So what is stopping you all from passing this? Now, with that being said, as far as what's stopping people from supporting it, prior to this, and Sofia's talked about this a little bit, what she introduced legislation that was completely to end regime change war in Syria. But there are a lot of loopholes that basically, even if they voted for it, they could still basically overthrow, right? They could still overthrow the government in various ways. And the reason that they're able to do that is because of the AUMF, unfortunately. The AUMF is authorized use of military force. I'm sure you've always heard the phrase, a president can't declare war, but they can surge a certain amount of troops over and over and over again, or dictate where certain special forces go to fight. Now, one of the reasons that they said that they were guarding the oil fields was, as Sofia just said, because they claimed that it was to defend it from Al-Qaeda and other terrorist groups. But that's not the case. That's not what we're there guarding it for. We're there to contract it out. That's what we're there for. I mean, Trump made it very clear. Now, however, when people always try to come up with reasons to keep our troops in Syria, the two reasons they use are Assad, but we supposedly haven't ever declared war on Assad. So that's problematic in and of itself. But two, they say we're there fighting terrorists. So if you remove troops from fighting terrorism, then you're just an evil person. Essentially, Tulsi is now saying, look, okay, I'll play ball. I will remove the troops and I will not interfere with the AUMF, which, by the way, would be technically unlawful for her to do. Without introducing a concurrent bill with this one, she would not be able to say, I want to remove every single troop from Syria, because the unfortunate part is she doesn't have that authority. This is why she talks about the importance of the job of commander-in-chief. As of right now, the AUMF grants the power for Trump, even if Tulsi passes resolution saying pull all troops out. Say if that's all it said, but didn't have the Al-Qaeda part, it wouldn't matter. Trump would still be able to surge troops under the AUMF. So Tulsi would have to get a bill to either completely amend or remove the AUMF, which unfortunately isn't going to happen. Like, it's not going to happen under her term in Congress, because these people are too bought off by the military industrial complex. So, but it is important to remember that that terrorists are oftentimes used to keep us in situations that we should not be in. And that needs to be, at the forefront. And Tulsi talks about this, but once again, all this legislation is great. I think the next step needs to be modifying the AUMF, bringing attention to the AUMF, discussing it, going through, breaking it down as to how it has been used and abused. And that would help grant a bigger picture. Well, go ahead, Sofia.
Yeah, well, on her press release, I just wanted to add that she actually talked about Well, I think you might have actually read it, but this is where she then specified Trump's deployment of U.S. troops to secure Syrian oil fields that do not belong to us, with talks welcoming
Hold on,
in
what? Say it again. You gotta
private
speak up.
corporations. Sorry, no, I'll read it again. President Trump's deployment of U.S. troops to secure Syrian oil fields that do not belong to us, with talks of welcoming in private oil corporations to take the oil, is unconstitutional and a violation of international law. Syria's natural resources belong to the Syrian people. So, so I think she may have decided to not include that in the resolution, but then she still commented on it in a press release. And also, this resolution is supported by Demand Progress and Just Foreign Policy. And then Eric Sperling, who's executive director of Just Foreign Policy, said Congress has not authorized troops to secure oil in Syria or to participate in hostilities against the governments of Russia, Iran, and Syria under Article 1 of the Constitution and the War Powers Resolution of 1973. The president cannot deploy troops into hostilities without prior congressional authorization. I commend Representative Gabbard for introducing this resolution, which will compel all members of the House to vote yes or no on endless war in front of their constituents.
Absolutely. I mean, that's 100% true. I'm glad that people are speaking up about it. Like you said, Max Blumenthal just talked about it. It's kind of weird that people talked about it this time, but not last time, I guess.
I know. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know.
In the first around that time, there must have been something else happening.
It might have been, yeah.
Around that time. Oh no, the debate was over. Oh well, wasn't it right after the debates? Maybe that was what got drowned out in the news. Maybe that's why it got drowned out. So, but hey,
it might have been also because this one got those endorsements. I don't recall last time.
Perhaps.
Yeah, it might have helped.
But like I said, even though this legislation isn't perfect, by our standards, and I hope that Tulsi takes
I'm
further
glad.
Steps.
Yeah, I'm glad that she at least removed the AUMF part, because that was my concern. But.
Yeah, because if you use the AUMF, you can use it for anything. If you say specifically, okay, if you're going to be here for Al Qaeda, that's different. But because what happens if you just generally say the AUMF, which is interesting. I wonder if she listened to you about that. Because I know that you had said something about it.
I think I'm the only person who commented about that, but that's just me.
Yeah, I only briefly talked about it. So you talked about it and pointed to it often, and you talked about it and I think our video covering it. You also talked about it on Twitter. But if you say the AUMF, then basically you can create reasons to be there. They can fit.
Yeah, and I had actually referenced the Senate version of the Yemen bill, which I think they used the language Al Qaeda though.
They use
did they use AUMF?
Language. They use the Al Qaeda language, and the reason, once again, I think the reason why it's just because if you can't.
But then the problem with that is that those troops that were in Saudi Arabia and Yemen, or I think Yemen,
not
right?
Saudi Arabia,
but I guess both. Yeah.
Well, because
they were fighting fighting on the side of Saudi Arabia against Yemen, but that the problem was that all of those troops there are fighting against Al Qaeda there.
Yeah, especially for Yemen.
That was I think that was the issue with the loophole specifically there. But with Syria, true. That's not. Yeah, it's not. It's not the same.
It's funny because, and once again, you have to kind of think of. I feel like Tulsi's bills are kind of like pieces to a whole puzzle, right? So, like, if I mean, as imperfect as this is, it's really only imperfect in a vacuum. But if you combine that with her Stop Arming Terrorism and Stop Financing Terrorism Act, where these organizations would essentially be cut off because you can't get money or support from us, and if anybody supports you, then we cut them off too, and they're no longer ally. So if you combine this, then if the only reason that we can stay there is to quote unquote go after Al Qaeda or just troops that are currently engaged with Al Qaeda, then there is going to be no Al Qaeda there.
Right. Exactly.
So and the only other excuse that we would use to be there is what? The oil. So and of course we can't, unless you declare a war, you can't just topple Assad. One, you can't seize their assets. Two, and if we're not funding the terrorism is most likely going to stop. So that eliminates it. So if you combine Tulsi's bills and resolutions together, they solve the grand, just the big picture problems that we have in these countries. So I want to move on really quick to what do we got next? The OPCW report. Good God Almighty, y'all don't even know Like when I first read this, I was kind of like, man, this is some bull.
I was so hyped, when they.
I was hyped that somebody did the right thing, but
Yeah.
it's disappointing because it just shows you just the reaches of the clutches of the United States. Like,
Yeah, and it's just all of these organizations that are supposed to be unbiased and everything. It always goes back to them being pro-Western. The UN, you have those NGOs like, Amnesty International and Human Rights Watch and whatnot.
And
all of those are biased, and
in the OPCW specifically, just a fun fact, was created by the UN Security Council. And everybody knows what's my nickname for the UN Security Council. I call it the U.S. Security Council because it's basically what the hell we want. And even the former in the article from WikiLeaks actually discusses this. But even the former person who was in charge of the OPCW was actually a Turkish guy from an administration that we were in charge of. So, but nonetheless, I do want to talk about this. So there was an OPCW whistleblower panel on the Duma attack of April 2018. I know a lot of you are probably thinking, like, damn, bro, like, which attack was it? Because it seems like all these attacks are being exposed as being fake. Yeah, actually, that's exactly what's happening.
It never made sense in the first place. So
yeah, none of them made any sense whatsoever. So at least they kind of got smarter, because they stopped trying to say that Assad was bombing his own like strongholds. Because remember, there was that for a while. Like, oh, he's committing chemical attacks right around the corner from his house. He's diabolical. Like, yeah, he's a diabolical moron if he's really doing that.
That his bombs are being dropped on Syrian civilians. Like, why would he do that? He needs people that are going to support him so that he can. If he's like if he just cares about power, he's this authoritarian dictator. You'd expect that he wants to hold on to his power, and in order to do that, he kind of needs somewhat of support. He's not going to do that by bombing. It just makes no sense.
Yeah, it does not make any sense whatsoever, and it's almost like. It's kind of like they think he's Cersei Lannister from Game of Thrones. Like, he's going to burn up his own state. Like, it's cool. Just burn up my own city to get respect. That's not how it works in real life, bro. Kirk2112, thanks for the super chat. Tulsi's stuff together and you got day one plans. Yep, that's very true. Very, very true. All right, so let me get back to this WikiLeaks report. And y'all bear with me because we're going to try to get through as much of it as we can, but it's very detailed. I want to make sure we get through it. So, the OPCW management accused of doctoring Syrian chemical weapons report. WikiLeaks Today publishes, and this is on November 23rd, 2019. WikiLeaks Today publishes an email sent by a member of an OPCW fact-finding mission to Syria to his superiors, in which he expresses his gravest concern over intentional bias introduced to a redacted version of the report he co-authored. The Organization of the Prohibition of Chemical Weapons sent a team of experts to investigate allegations that a chemical weapons attack took place in the Syrian city of Duma on April 7th, 2018. The author of the email was a member of that team and claims the redacted preliminary version of that report misrepresents the facts he and his colleagues discovered on the ground. The email is dated 22nd of June. I'm assuming that's this year. Oh, maybe no. If it was 22nd of June, they might have did it last.
I think when I was reading it. Oh no, 2018.
Yeah, because I was about to say you want to have the information fresh when you're reporting on it. So it is addressed to Robert Fairweather, Chief of Cabinet, and forwarded to his deputy Amir Shuket and the members of the fact-finding mission to Duma. He says this misrepresentation was achieved by selective omission, introducing a bias which undermines the credibility of the report. Further, it is claimed that crucial facts that have remained in the redacted version. So, this is the words of the guy who is expressing his concerns. He says it's morphed into something quite different to what was originally drafted. This is said to have been done at the behest of the Office of the Director General, a post that was held by Turkish diplomat Ahmet Uzukmuz. Oh, goodness gracious. I ain't going to try to pronounce his name. His first name is Ahmet, and that's all you need to know. He has since been replaced by Spaniard Fernando Arias. The attack in question was widely attributed to the Syrian army based on reports by rebel forces. By rebel forces, they mean terrorist organizations. I feel like we should
literally
clarify that. But reports by rebel forces that were present in Duma at the time. And this assertion was backed up by the United States, British and French governments. What a surprise. These three countries carried out airstrikes against Syrian government targets in response without any investigation. And the 14th of April 2018. Oh, excuse me. It was on the 14th of April 2018 that they carried out the attacks. So the Syrian chemical weapons attacks
7 days later
were 7 days. Yeah, exactly. 7 days later, bro. For what? You're just gonna attack? You're just gonna launch a strike? That's insane to me. Like it's. I can't even fathom how these sociopaths think. So this was before the fact-finding team. Hey, oh, by the way, that was during the chemical weapons strike where ISIS was literally following behind. Like it was like we were clearing a path for ISIS, and then ISIS was moving forward as we were doing the strikes because at that point, I believe Assad had almost cleared out the terrorist organizations, and to help them get ground again, we started bombing, and then coincidentally enough, ISIS started moving forward. It was crazy. So upon arrival, the team found much of the physical evidence, including the bodies of the deceased, were no longer available. That's super weird. It was alleged that 49 had died and up to 650 had been seriously affected by a weaponized chemical gas released in a specific area of rebel-held Duma on that day in April. Rebels claim the gas came from cylinders dropped from an aircraft, clearly implicating the Syrian government forces who had complete air superiority. The redacted report seemed to support these conclusions, but the author of the released email outlines some specific aspects of which he considers particularly worrisome. Firstly, there is a statement in the redacted report that states there is sufficient evidence to determine the presence of chlorine and other reactive chlorine-containing chemicals. Chlorine or another reactive chlorine-containing chemical. The email points out that this was likely one or more chemicals that contain a reactive chlorine atom. Such chemicals could include the major ingredient of household chlorine-based bleach. Purposely singling out chlorine gas as one of the possibilities is disingenuous. The redacted report also removed context from a claim in the original draft, which concerned the likelihood of the gas having emanated from cylinders found at the scene of Duma. The original text is said to have purposely emphasized that there was insufficient evidence to affirm this being the case. This is a major deviation from the original report, according to the author of the original report. He also cites problems with paragraphs in the redacted version, which states, based on the high levels of various chlorinated organic derivatives detected in environmental samples, this is said to overstate the case, according to the email. They were, in most cases, present only in parts per billion range, as low as 1 to 2 ppb, which is essentially trace quantities. Oh, like residue, basically. So there wasn't even a major chemical. So for them to claim that 650 people were harmed by the chemicals, apparently that's not true. Now, one piece of evidence which was drawn on news networks across the world was a video said to show victims being treated in the hospital in the aftermath of the Duma attack. The symptoms shown were, however, not consistent with what witnesses reported seeing that day. A detailed discussion of this was apparently omitted from the redacted version of the OPCW report. The email goes on to state, Omitting this section of the report, including the epidemiology, which has been removed in its entirety, has a serious negative impact on the report, as this section is inextricably linked to the chemical agent identified. In this case, the confidence in the identity of chlorine or any other choking agent is drawn into question precisely because of the inconsistency with the reported and observed symptoms. The inconsistency was not only noted by the fact-finding mission team, but strongly supported by the 3 toxicologists with expertise in exposure to chemical warfare agents. It's not looking good. It's not looking good. All right, we're almost done here. Yet another point of contention in this is this placement and the condition of cylinders reported to have contained the chemical agent. It has been alleged that their condition may not be consistent with having been dropped from the air. This was reported in the original OPCW leaks, compared to damage in the immediate surrounding area. In other words, if you look at the rest of the area where there is air damage, that canister didn't look like it was dropped from the air. So this was discussed in an unreleased engineering report from the OPCW that was leaked, and WikiLeaks published it on October 2019. And everybody remembers that. And indicates it is unlikely that the cylinders were air dropped. See previous release OPCW whistleblower panel. So, and once again, the discussions where that part was talked about was omitted from the redacted report. In other words, where they were talking about the fact that this could not have been dropped by the Syrian government, that was also redacted by the report. So, Sophia, what do you think about that?
I mean, it's really disheartening because this is supposed to be a fact-finding mission, and then what they're doing is it's just like an opinion-finding mission, I guess, or a fact-finding mission that just reaffirms. Yeah, right. Yeah, it was just like they have an opinion, they want that opinion to be true, and then they're just going to remove any information necessary to prove their point. And
I feel it's more nefarious than that. I feel like they don't have an opinion. They want the opinion to be true. I think they know the facts, and they want those facts to be not true.
Right, but they have an opinion, which is we need to basically assert that this is the Assad, government's
I don't think that's
fault.
An opinion. That's my thing. I don't think it's an opinion. I think it's nefarious. I think that they had a clear intention that no matter what happened, we're going to say Assad was guilty of this because because the U.S. and the West wants to invade Syria. We need to bomb and clear the way for X, Y, and Z. I'm not sure. The people who do this dumb shit where they think they won't get caught, by the way, I don't think they know the bigger picture. They're not paying attention. Like they're not that plugged in. In fact, you usually get the dumb ones to be in these positions to do this because they don't think about extenuating circumstances. But the grand scheme is somebody with power from the West, more than likely the United States, told someone, you're going to make this report look as if Assad is without a doubt guilty, and they went on to do this. And that's the like, in my opinion, that's like you're dead in the water now. You're dead in the water. Who else could have authorized this? And what is the only reason that you would get away with something like this? Is if the United States and the West are backing you.
And there's actually a political cartoon, and it's OPC. It looks kind of like a crook or something, and then the guy is writing Duma Syria chemical attack report, and then the pen that he's using is UK, and then the other 2 pens that are on display are US and France. So
I mean, it's true though.
It's true.
Allison Irwin, thanks for the super chat. Thanks for the stream, fam. Y'all keep me somewhat sane. Thank you. I appreciate you. And I think we got one more that I don't want to miss. Oh, no, I think I got it. All right. So, but yeah. So overall, I mean, in my opinion, it's just once again being made perfectly clear, because this wasn't the first chemical weapons attack that's been debunked. I feel like it's been debunked over and over and over again. And this just kind of goes back to what Tulsi's bill our resolution is about what she's been saying. And by the way, it should be said, because she's the only one who said it, that she has always had her doubts about the reports from the OPCW. Mm-hmm. And she's the only one.
I think I might have told you this, but on her website, she actually includes the information about the whistleblowers and stuff.
Really?
On her issues page. Yeah.
Well, there you have it.
Yeah, she has. Yeah, it's issues, and then it's reports on chemical attacks in Syria. But the only thing that I didn't like about it, it says there is evidence that both the Syrian government of Bashar al-Assad as well as the armed opposition groups aligned against him have used chemical weapons during the Syrian war, which is not, there's no evidence necessarily, but.
Hold on,
but she says.
Go ahead, speak up.
It says, I have in the past expressed skepticism as to the actual source of two specific chemical weapons attacks, one at Khan Sheikhoun on April 4th, 2017, and the other at Duma on April 7th, 2018. I forgot. I think Jimmy always referenced how they were literally at the same time, pretty much. Yeah. But both attacks occurred in towns under the control of Al-Qaeda-linked opposition forces. Both attacks resulted in multiple civilian casualties.
Speak up. Can't hear you.
Why? My microphone... Do I need to turn up my microphone?
Well, you keep getting lower the further along you get.
Okay. Both attacks occurred in towns under the control of Al-Qaeda-linked opposition forces. Both attacks resulted in multiple civilian casualties, and both were immediately blamed on the Assad government. Yeah. However, there's evidence to suggest that the attacks may have been staged by opposition forces for the purpose of drawing the United States and the West deeper into the war. It is the responsibility of Congress to declare war and to make decisions regarding the carrying out of military action against other countries. Therefore, as a member of Congress as well as a soldier, I'm committed to protecting our Constitution and the constitutional process. I therefore made it very clear that the president should not take any military action without congressional approval in accordance with the Constitution. And then she kind of continues. And then she also had mentioned at the end, the OPCW also relied on those Al-Qaeda sources. I believe that we should all carefully look at the evidence before coming to any conclusions as to whether or not Al-Qaeda or the Syrian government.
I think that it's important to also mention that 2017, why she would be skeptical about that chemical weapons attack. And the reason why is because if any of you recall, that attack happened right after Tulsi convinced Donald Trump to pull the CIA out of Syria. That's that attack. I think it was October. It said October 2017, correct? Or September?
No, the 2017 one was April 4th.
April, there you go. It had to be at the beginning when he first got elected because Steve Bannon was still there. So Tulsi, and remember how they always try to talk trash about Tulsi for meeting with Trump, and what the reason that she met with Trump, because she had actually introduced legislation to get us out of Syria to begin with. So us getting out of Syria has always been big for her. And so she tries to meet with Trump.
He ended the covert CIA program in July. I just wanted to add that.
July
of 2017. Year. Yeah. So that attack actually occurred before.
So which one was it that happened later in 2017? Because there was two that happened in 2017.
Oh. Are you...
Because literally, I remember reporting on... I wish I could remember the date that I did the report.
No, you're right.
But basically...
Yeah, I'll look it up as you...
The chemical weapons attacks that have happened have always been conveniently either Assad was beating the crap out of the terrorists and they're almost out, or Trump is like, okay, I want to pull troops out. Even if he says it or thinks it out loud or even mentions it, immediately there's a chemical weapons attack. Immediately troops, Russia is picking up ground. Like, whatever. Either way, we shouldn't even be there because we haven't declared war. First of all, we shouldn't be there at all. Yeah. And I wouldn't like it if we declared a war. But I wish somebody would introduce legislation so to say that they want to declare war, so everybody who voted on it, we can get their ass out of office. Because I don't think it would pass. But we can get them out of office, and we can know who's actually anti-war, and who's faking the funk, if you will. Big Irv, what's going on, man? Was happy to see Tulsi on Rogan yesterday, for sure. I'm going to be covering that too, or covering a couple of those segments. Yeah, it was a really good conversation. I couldn't believe they actually had her on for 2.5 hours. I'm surprised she sat still for that long. I feel like she never does interviews for that long. But
I think her first Joe Rogan one was longer. Or no, never mind. It was probably just like 15
no, I think it was like
minutes
an
shorter.
hour and like. I mean, it was still long. It was, but 2 hours and 30 minutes. I just wasn't expecting that. It was a great conversation.
I think the reason why you thought there was one in October was because October was when they released like a statement about how the Syrian regime was responsible for it.
That's what it was. So Tulsi met with Trump immediately, and then the chemical weapons attacks happened. But then October is when they said, "Oh, we know that Syria was the one who did it," and then the attacks happened. So that does make sense. So the report came out in October that Assad was guilty, basically, but the attacks happened in April, correct? And Tulsi met with Trump before April, because it had to be because Steve Bannon was still in. Remember, Steve Bannon left like May or June of that same year. So, but yeah, basically, coincidentally, after she meets with Trump, it's like all of a sudden you gotta, hey, somebody gotta get blown up. That's basically how it goes. If you're gonna try and end regime change in any capacity, then we're just gonna kill more innocent people. So you make sure to never do it again. And we'll make it look like you are. If you don't retaliate, then you're weak. If you don't retaliate, then you're not with the American people. Like, that's just how it goes. So I do want to move on. All right. So I'm pretty sure most of you heard about this by now. But Andrew Yang has decided to boycott MSNBC. And he has some tweets about it. And I'm going to pull those up for you guys so you can see them. Pull them up for you. All right, so first tweet says, was asked to appear on MSNBC this weekend and told them that I'd be happy to after they apologize on air, discuss and include our campaign consistent with our polling, and allow surrogates from our campaign as they do other campaigns. They think we need them and we do not. He goes on to say, they've omitted me from their graphics 12 plus times, called me John Gang on air, and given me a fraction of the speaking time over 2 debates, despite my polling higher than other candidates on the stage. We talked about this. At some point, you got to call it. The whole time we have gotten stronger. This is actually bad for MSNBC. And it's true. It will only get worse after I make the next debates and keep rising in the polls. The people are smarter than MSNBC would like to think. It's hard to find disagreements with any of that. What do you think about the boycott?
I think it's good. I think we should have been boycotting MSNBC for longer than that.
I mean, yeah,
I
that's
think
true.
it shouldn't have taken you that too.
What do you think about Yang specifically doing it? Like, do you feel like he's justified? What do you think his goals are?
Well, we were kind of talking about this, but I don't know. Yang has that kind of. I don't want to be insulting, but he kind of cares about his ego, and that's kind of an understatement. So I do feel like he is using this to kind of make people feel bad for him and support him. I think that could be part of it, and just to feel like he's famous. He was, that hashtag was trending for like that whole day.
Yeah, it was trending pretty.
But yeah, it was really, basically it was trending like number 1. It was starting at number 4, but it was within like the top 5, all day. But yeah, I don't want to, I just don't want to like be rude and like say something that, you know, but that's perception of him, that he's always been kind of focused on himself, and he's egotistical sometimes. I don't, yeah.
Yeah, that's
I'm
true.
like
I mean, he
hesitant
can't have
to
an
say
ego,
that.
but
I
I
think
do
there's
feel
probably
like
a better word for
I do
what
feel
I'm
like there's
trying
a
to describe.
level of like to run for president, everybody has to have some
Yeah.
kind of ego.
Yeah.
But my thing is, and we talked about this earlier, if you're going to have an ego, right? Because everybody has some type of ego if you're running for president, like any type of political office, but especially the president of the United States, especially in this era, right? You have to have like a supreme level of confidence, or you're going to lose. If you're going to have this level of ego, then you might as well direct it in the appropriate direction. If your ego is going to manifest by calling out MSNBC for screwing you over, when we know this has happened to other candidates that we support, like obviously Bernie and Tulsi, even Marianne Williamson, who's actually discussed this as well, then I'm glad. If you're going to have an ego and that's what's going to happen, then call out MSNBC. That's a good thing. I'm okay with that. Or if you're going to have an ego and talk about the fact that your mic was cut off while you were talking in a debate and no one else would say this, but Andrew Yang did, is it probably to uplift his presidency and let everybody know that he's being soft? Of course, it's marketing. It's kind of part of the job. But to call out MSNBC, to let them know that you are seeing everything and the world is seeing everything. And I think at this point, although the Yang people have admitted now that Tulsi is outpolling him, I would still consider him to be a major candidate. I would still consider him to be a legitimate threat, because once again, whatever poll you're looking at, whoever's in the top three outside of Bernie, they're not really in the top three. Their numbers are skewed to make it look like they're much more competitive than they will be when the primaries actually arise. So, and when you combine Yang's online movement with his record-breaking fundraising records and things like that, he's clearly a top candidate. So when a top candidate calls you out, even if when nobody had been, so if the people who otherwise probably wouldn't even have been paying attention to Yang, he probably has a lot more attention now than he did, just debating and talking about the issues, just because we've seen, whether it's Tulsi standing up to Hillary in the DNC 2016 and obviously calling out Hillary recently, if whether it's Bernie calling out the Democratic establishment in 2016, or Yang calling out the Democrats for cheating them on the debate stage, or Marianne Williamson going on television and saying, yo, I've been getting treated worse by the Democrats and I've been a Democrat my entire life. Like, people love those who will challenge the system that has been suppressing them and saying things that have otherwise been taboo to say, because you'll be ostracized as a leftist or you'll be ostracized as a Democrat. I think that works to his benefit.
Yeah. I think it also increased his favorability, just like among like Bernie people, Tulsi people, because listen, even if it's not necessarily driven by some kind of ulterior motive. I think that's like too much. That's a reach. But whatever his real motives may be, I feel as though it makes people respect him for being brave. Brave enough to stand up directly. And
it's the same thing I say about Bernie too. Because some people think that if you can respect a move like this, then that must mean you support him, or you gotta, I don't know if he's a progressive. I don't know if I would quite go that far, but I think that once again, this is more proof that, yeah, he is imperfect, but the establishment doesn't like him. And it's probably because of how malleable he is, to be real with you. The good thing about an ego, once again, that works out for us. Politics is all about using people's self-interest against them, by the way. Fun fact from Niko. You can have that for free. But it's with everything. So with Yang, his ego and his desire to be seen as this star of humanity, because that's basically what he is, it also is a driving factor behind why he will move on certain issues, left or otherwise, when he gets pushed. And so that makes him a problem for the establishment, especially because the more the establishment tries to push him in one direction, he goes the other way just to stand them up to show that he's bigger than they are. Like, if you look at the MSNBC thing, look at the way he changed his UBI, like, it's like he goes out of his way to piss them off if he thinks he can get away with it. And he thinks it'll be well received by his base. So that's, so just like I feel about Bernie, because people, I don't know why people keep thinking that Yang's foreign policy is that much different than Bernie's. They're basically the same. They basically, truck in and they participate in manufacturing of consent. Well, they'll both say we want to cooperate, but
like, obviously I've studied Bernie's foreign policy pretty well. Like, there are a couple of things where Yang goes further, but I think with pressure, though, with pressure, Bernie would end up just accepting the positions that Yang has already
seems like
taken.
With pressure, they they go in two different directions for pressure, right? It's like Bernie will capitulate to get something else done, or at least if he thinks he can get something else done, he'll capitulate on one thing just to get something else done, even if that one thing could cost lives. But Yang is weird. Yang is like, fuck you. Like, I'm going to do what I want. And if you're telling me to go left, then I'm going to go right and then throw a concert about it. Like, that's just kind of who he is. So, like, I still consider him an outsider, although people they say he's an establishment splinter cell, basically, or sleeper cell. And I'm like, I don't think he's that complicated of a person. I think he's just not good on foreign policy. He's trash on foreign policy. But does that make Yang unique? It seems like most of the quote unquote left is trash on foreign policy at this damn point. Like, you got Green Party presidential candidates trafficking in Russiagate rhetoric. So, like, what's our standard? Can't be you have to agree with them, you don't have to agree. The standard should be, in my humble opinion, you push people left and stop pretending like your candidate is perfect. That should be the standard. Because Lord knows, half of me and Sofia's conversations are pushing Tulsi left and figuring out the best way to bring new facts to help her understand. Because obviously she's a presidential candidate and a congresswoman. She don't have time to look up everything that we're looking up. So we kind of like talk about, well, we should cover this because it will help give her guidance and a little bit more perspective on a major issue that she may not have time to look up all the details about. Right? How many Tulsi supporters did you see online pushing Tulsi to speak about Bolivia? Right? Almost just as many as you saw Bernie supporters, but Bernie supporters are being a little bit more obnoxious about it, to be honest. But same thing with Bernie people. We're like with Assange, we're like, yo, you gotta talk about Assange, and we're still like, I mean, you gotta talk about Assange. Unfortunately, a lot of the people have kind of been like, well, there has to be a reason. No, you can't do that. You can't just say there has to be a reason. Not when you can make a whole video about a CIA whistleblower, or not CIA, a CIA asset who's pretending to be a whistleblower. So that's the thing I say about Yang, Tulsi, Marianne Williamson, who was moved left on Medicare for All. And I think you have to push them left or push them to be correct. They don't have to be perfect, but you can learn a lot from the way someone is being attacked. Right? You don't just look at the things because you're presuming that these people are just naturally smarter than the rest of the country. That's not true. Most people in these positions are not that smart, to be honest with you. Tulsi's a rare being. Bernie is intelligent when it comes to a lot of domestic policies and how the mechanisms can work to help the general labor force. Yang is really good at understanding automation in the different ways. But that doesn't mean they're political experts. It doesn't mean any of them are political experts. And we assume because someone says something different or wrong, right? Something they say could be factually wrong or at least misleading, that they're being nefarious instead of just not being good on it. Like sometimes, so it's better to judge, okay, who is attacking these people, right? How are they being attacked? Is it genuine? These discussions, are they going after? So, because it's funny, because what are the things that you would think they would be saying about Yang, right? If he was on their side, why aren't you? He's trafficking in Russiagate rhetoric. He's pushing just about every single foreign policy stance the establishment would like, except for he keeps saying he doesn't want interventionism. So basically, like I said, almost the same thing as Bernie, seemingly, and yet they're not celebrating that part. So why not? Why? Matter of fact, the only time they tee him up during the debates is to get him to talk foreign policy, to say, look, he agrees with that. Okay, now shut up, Yang. Don't talk about anything else. Because he does address automation. The corporations could be harmed by addressing it. And that's a big deal to the donors. So just because we don't like what Yang has to say all the time doesn't mean he's nefarious. It just could mean he's an egotistical guy who gets wrong. And because he's not that smart on certain issues. It's okay. We're human. I'm not as smart on some issues as I would like to be. But if I say something that's wrong, does that mean I'm nefarious? No. It just means I might not be as smart as I would like to be in the issue. So, I think we have one more. You know what? I gotta find it. But while we're talking about that, so I'm gonna bring this tweet up. While we're talking about that, what did you think about Obama's statement? 'Cause I don't think you released a video on that, but I'm pretty sure that everybody wants to know your opinion about it. Sofia.
The Obama and Bernie stuff?
Yeah. What about
Okay, because I was just like, what did Obama say now?
Right, I know, right? It seemingly
he's like always speaking every like 2 weeks about something, and it's just like, go the fuck away. He isn't as bad as Hillary, but
all right,
man, I don't really care what he thinks, you know. So everyone who is sharing that article, or reiteration, I guess, of that article, all they focused on was the fact that Obama said he would speak out against Bernie if he won the nomination, but then no one focuses on the other two parts, which include the fact that one, Bernie met with Obama, and the only two candidates who did not meet with him were Yang and Tulsi, and two, that Obama said that Bernie doesn't have a chance at winning the nomination. So to me, I took that second statement as he is very well aware that the DNC will rig it against Bernie again. And it's
no
not
way you
just
can look
him.
at the raw numbers and say that. There's no possible way. But you can say that Warren's almost a home run. That makes no sense.
Right. So it's not just him saying, I don't personally want Bernie to win the nomination. It's actually him being aware, as someone who is affiliated with the Democratic Party, and obviously someone who literally used to, be the president of that, representing that party.
I think in charge of it.
Yeah, I mean, Clinton is probably more in charge of it, but
True.
She was a Secretary of State, so
true.
But as a representative of that party, he knows very well what they'll do to Bernie once again. So everyone just chose to ignore that and instead focus on the fact that he said he would speak out if Bernie won the nomination. But then again, does it even matter if he spoke out? If he was nominated, if Obama already knows that he's not going to be nominated? I just thought that was interesting. I think that I don't like to always bring Tulsi up, when it has nothing to do with her, but I do feel like Bernie supporters, if it was the opposite, which is everyone but Yang and Bernie met with Obama, then they wouldn't give a shit if Obama said that about Tulsi, I would speak out against her winning nomination. They would be focusing instead on the fact that she met with Obama, because it makes you wonder, and I think I was like one of the only people that was actually talking about this before the story was released, that he had actually met with Obama. And I had told that, told that to you, because I feel like it's a little troubling, for him to feel like he needs to hear from someone who perpetuated the same foreign policies and who, Bernie supported the majority of those actions. I don't understand, again, what part of Obama's candidacy does Bernie admire? He said that he was impressed with his foreign policy, but even with domestic, even if Bernie is now an anti-interventionist, what domestic aspect of Obama's legacy did Bernie feel like he needed to reconcile and to console?
Because I know you're not about to step into his house and talk about how much you don't like him.
Yeah, right.
I guess not what's happening.
He's a good friend of his, so
because they've talked, and by the way, Bernie as a person, Obama has actually talked very favorably of, right? just not Bernie as a president. And largely due to the fact that basically if Bernie becomes president, as domestic policy wise, he exposes Obama and the failures of the ACA, and that's his legacy. That is his baby. I don't know why he is so like just invested, and I get it. Like,
well, I think Biden is more invested in it than Obama.
Well, now because he can't win if you undermine the ACA.
Right.
But in all seriousness, it is kind of weird that you've seen this defense of Bernie, because I like since the news cycle is kind of like I've reported on it yesterday. I didn't really get to see all the reactions. I didn't think why I'm surprised by this still is beyond me. But I didn't think that people would be reacting in defending Bernie instead of just saying that's not a good look, man. And that's it. That's right. It's not a good look, and just move on. He needs to do better. He can't be doing that. He's supposed to be.
Or like, oh, what did he discuss with Obama?
In the article I read yesterday, it said about the future of the party and all that good stuff. But it was advice, right? And they've been very clear that everybody is gone for advice. Like you're not like Obama wasn't president anymore, so you weren't advising him.
Yeah, like you shouldn't want the advice of someone who brought us Trump to defeat Trump.
Yeah.
You know, like I don't what's
the advice of somebody who kept saying that Hillary is the most qualified president or presidential candidate.
Right. And
when he didn't even like Hillary. He didn't even like her.
Yeah.
Personally, he doesn't like her. So like, and there's been articles leaks about that shit. And so when you have a candidate who is clearly willing to go against their own instincts, if they think it will protect their legacy, like Obama, then it's bothersome that Bernie would take his advice, because that is the path that we have seen him kind of going on recently. It's a pattern of this behavior, really, and it might just be because he's more in the public eye now, but it's becoming an issue when you're looking at and the issue also of him backing neoliberals, or not backing them necessarily, but capitulating to them only to get stabbed in the back. You can literally start with Warren, who he propped up and said, look, if you want to be the first female president, I will put all my resources into pushing you to be that. Just please don't let Hillary run. And what did Warren do? Stayed silent, both sides the bullshit, and eventually endorsed Hillary after knowing it was rigged, after we found out that she was being vetted to be vice president. So it was political for her. So she stabbed Bernie in the back. And then, of course, fast forward, she's now using his rhetoric and his policies, watering them down, and then in a lot of cases now, not even giving him credit, letting it be claimed that she's the one running on Medicare for all. And Bernie, once again, doesn't check it. Then you got the Hillary situation where it'd be one thing, okay, you signed a contract that says you have to endorse a candidate, but damn, you're going to go campaign around the country for her just so she doesn't talk trash about you, only for her to still talk trash about you.
She writes a damn book. Yeah.
You know? Then you got Obama. And look what the multiple times that Obama has screwed Bernie over, stabbed him in the back.
Obama had endorsed Bernie in 2006, right? Or he had.
Yeah, Obama first endorsed Bernie.
He had spoken highly of him, and then
friends.
he didn't endorse. Yeah, he didn't endorse him
for the election
primaries,
because he was told not to. I mean, it's obvious. Then you got the situation where he calls out Center for American Progress for smearing Cory Booker and Elizabeth Warren, and then what does Warren do again? Once again, takes credit for his policies, waters them down, pretends like she's the same, takes some of his voters away, and it's a consistent pattern. And it seems like, even though we've seen how that works historically, especially if we look at Obama, we know how this works. He thinks that, well, if I played, or Tom Perez, another example, Unity Tour, only to get once again screwed over by the DNC's process. And by the people that the DNC. He
defended the rigging process in terms of the selection process.
He said it was rigged, and then after the Unity Tour was over, I never said that. That's what Tom Perez did. So it's a consistent pattern of Bernie thinking that something will work out better for him if he capitulates. But will it work out better for you? Or is it better for the people? Or is it better for your career? Is it better for your image? Because believe they won't smear you if you give them a little bit. Give them a little bit here. And the famous phrase is famous for a reason. You give them an inch, they'll take a mile. Like, there's a reason that they say that. So that is my primary issue. And to see people kind of defend this behavior, like defend that meeting, like in a very unobjective, uncritical
or
way.
totally ignore it because they know it's kind of indefensible.
Yeah,
and baseless.
But my thing
ridiculous.
is, it's okay that it's indefensible. It's okay. Just say he was wrong, and say Bernie, tag him. Bernie, this wasn't cool. This isn't right. We're supposed to be fighting against these people, because let's not forget, all Tulsi said. It's weird, right? When Tulsi's like, I agree with Ellen. We shouldn't attack people just on face of what policy or what party they or what ideology they support, just left or right. She's just like, I just think that we should be trying to practice unity and respect for everybody. And they're like, oh my God, Tulsi's propping up a war criminal. Like, they extrapolated all that from a statement about unity. But we know that Bernie met with Obama to get advice about his presidential campaign from a president who is, without a doubt, a war criminal, who has a 90% civilian casualty rate with drone warfare. Okay? And yet nobody had anything to say about that. Beyond that, I saw people making excuses for it. Well, we can trust him. He was probably pushing Obama left. He was not the president anymore. Push him how?
What has Obama said that's left now?
Now, I will also say this. And Bernie, Tulsi probably knows how we feel about this, so I really don't care if she would hear it. But if Tulsi met with Obama, I don't give a damn if it was 2014. I'm just kidding. When she was Congress and when she was in Congress and he is the president, that's completely different. This was 2018, on the precipice of you about to announce that you're running for office after you're telling everybody you're not going to run. You don't know if you're going to run, even though it's obvious. But you're telling everybody he wasn't going to run. And you meet with the former president and you're specifically talking about the future of the party. So clearly it's about running for office. What if Tulsi was in that situation and is going to tell me she's trying to rail against the Clinton foreign policy doctrine, but you're meeting with the arbiter, the face, if you will, of the Clinton foreign? That's the only reason that we were able to get away with so much, because slick talking ass Obama convinced the world of a lot of bullshit on behalf of the Clintons. And so, even with Russiagate. So when you have that happening, you can't tell me one thing and then go meet up with Obama and tell me that you're going to be different than Obama, especially on foreign policy in that regard. And I would take issue with that, and I would critique her for that. And I would have a problem with it, but I'm also aware that that's not the only issue in the world, and we can move on after that as long as we hold her accountable and let her know how we feel. That is what we should be doing. Go ahead. Sorry,
I just wanted to add, and also props to Yang for not meeting with Obama. I would have expected him to have met with Obama, but I don't know. I don't know if it's Yang's inclination to. Well, actually, Obama. Well, he worked under the Obama administration, didn't he?
But he also, Obama didn't really have any advice to offer him because Yang was never planning on running a traditional campaign.
Yeah, so right. And I think Yang also recognizes that Obama brought us Trump.
Yeah, he talks about it.
So I feel like perhaps he felt like it was counterproductive to meet with the person who brought us Trump in order to beat him. I don't know.
Hold on. Apparently there's a super chat that I missed. I saw somebody mention the word super chat. Did I miss something, guys?
Is it the Julian Assange?
From Marcus Will?
Yeah.
What did he say?
He said, do you think Tulsi will ever meet Julian Assange? You know what? She needs
that would be very difficult
again for him. And especially with the recent WikiLeaks drop, it just goes to show and proves the importance of WikiLeaks, who again has a 100% accuracy rate. And without this kind of information being released, with the first whistleblower and the second whistleblower, at the end of the day, it's even helping Tulsi to have this kind of evidence to show, because it's not a conspiracy theory to be skeptical of these claims. And it's really WikiLeaks that's helping her in that instance, where she's able to say there have been two whistleblowers that have released this information. And it gives me reasoning to remain skeptical. I'm not being a conspiracy theorist. This isn't out of nowhere. I have reason to be skeptical in the first place, but now, especially with WikiLeaks and the work that they do, I'm able to have that.
Also, it shows that what we have been saying, and I think that I've mentioned this before, but I'll say it again. You think that arresting Julian Assange or trying to torture him out of existence is going to stop WikiLeaks from being WikiLeaks? You think? I don't know if y'all know how these organizations work. They're very decentralized. We just got another leak, and we just covered it. We just covered another leak from the OPCW that was sent to WikiLeaks. They have liaisons everywhere. Julian Assange was in an Ecuadorian embassy when all the DNC leaks dropped. What are you talking about? Like that? These people are idiots. They think they're going to scare people away from ever participating in this type of, legitimate publishing, which is super weird, but from publishing the truth. They think they're going to scare people out of publishing the truth, but it's actually embolden people.
Yeah.
What?
I was just going to say, I think it is effective in the sense that, if, his condition continues to, deteriorate, I think it really does send that message to any journalist out there. If you publish information that the government feels is distasteful, that undermines their power, that gives people reasoning to question them, whatnot, like we will go after you and we will prosecute you as if.
But that message had been sent anyway. Like, I think that message was pretty clear from the jump. And once again, although some people have been compared, but those people I feel like we're always going to switch back to, back to like a David Pakman, if you will. Like, he was always going to be who he was. Sam Cedar, always going to be who he was. The mainstream, they were always going to be what they were. TYT, we want to think that the money was what changed them, but for all we know, they were just following the popular Bernie wave at the time, because that was a big thing. Because they haven't really changed from following popular narratives. So I feel like we can rightfully assume that was always going to be what they were going to do. It just happened to work out in our benefit. So when you're talking about the journalism world, I feel like there have been more journalists that have spawned because of the persecution of somebody like Julian Assange. And because they saw the value of what he had to bring. And although they won't take it necessarily as far as Julian Assange every time, there are people who do, right? You now have, I feel like there are more whistleblowers coming out more and more often. WikiLeaks hasn't slowed down. Don't be surprised if you see another leak. Don't be surprised if you see another leak about this election. Don't be surprised now, because people always ask, well, why didn't he release anything? Why didn't he release anything on Donald Trump? And I've always said, because he can't. He doesn't release private emails. He releases public emails from public officials. He's not going to hack someone's private email just because they're running for public office. That's not how it works. He's very clear about that.
And again, did he even need to?
Yeah, right. Exactly. Right. There's that.
But again, he's just going to release whatever information. It's not like he's doing the hacking. He's just publishing that information that he receives. So it's just like, okay, then complain to someone for not having hacked, Trump's emails or something, and expect Julian to then publish it or something. Like,
the emails most times aren't even hacked. Like, they're just printed off and given. Like, it's just that's generally what happens. That's why they've never been able to charge him with anything like that, or anybody else, at least in the United States, because they're not hacked. They're just printed off by somebody who has access. Same thing with that OPCW email. That email wasn't hacked.
Yeah, I don't know. Access. I don't know if we wanted to go through that, but it was an interesting email.
Yeah, I mean, we already did a breakdown, so is what it is. Yeah, but
it's good though.
Real quick, what I'm about to do is pull up this NBC tweet, because y'all gonna love this. This bullshit. If it ever comes up, if it doesn't want to do it, it doesn't want to do what it wants to do. It just wants to do what it wants to do. Okay, that's cool. There we go. Booyah. I know what I'm doing sometimes. So, I wanted to show you all this tweet that happened the night after the debate, because it's some bullshit, to put it frankly. All right, so look at this tweet, y'all. It's from it's NBC News. It says, Mayor Buttigieg slams Representative Gabbard during the debate. says, what you've just pointed out is that you would lack the courage to meet with both adversaries and friends to ensure peace and security to our nation. And like, wow, if Pete really did say that, then he might have gotten my vote. You know, he might have gotten some support from me. That's a really powerful statement. It is truly a statement emblematic of a true leader ready to take on the mantle of commander in chief.
Who knows the cost of war, right?
That shows that he understands. Whoever made that statement clearly demonstrates that they understand the cost of war. Now, the problem with that is Pete Buttigieg did not make that statement to Tulsi Gabbard. Tulsi Gabbard made that statement to Pete Buttigieg. NBC posted this tweet saying that Pete Buttigieg slammed Tulsi with Tulsi's own quote. But it gets even better because this was right after the debate commentary where they talked about the fact that Tulsi was the only one who didn't have a shining moment, that she was the only one who performed badly, that she wasn't good, etc., etc., etc. But because they didn't show any love to Yang. They weren't trying to show love to Tulsi you know how I know? Because when they redid the tweet, they deleted it because we literally like bombarded them. Tulsi's press secretary got in touch with them. The campaign did, like, yo, bro, what's going on? And so they changed it, and it just switched from Mayor Pete Buttigieg slams Representative Gabbard to Representative Gabbard said this. Okay, whatever. It went from slams to I guess she said this. We got to put it up now.
We have to act like we're some kind of credible news organization,
right? I'm just impressed that they actually redacted it. But I think that's because when the campaign got alerted, and we're responding to it, then they knew it was going to be a problem. So, and I think Tulsi was damn near still in the building. That's how ridiculous it was. So, you're lucky that one Yang might have walked up to you in the building and said something to you.
Yeah.
So,
I think sometimes Tulsi needs some of that ego.
Right. So basically, it's just, once again, just another quick example of just how bad the media is. And also how real Tulsi's statements are. How much those statements actually resonate. Because when everybody thought it was Pete Buttigieg who said it, all of a sudden they got a bunch of retweets and likes from neoliberals. Isn't that crazy? Isn't that crazy? Oh, when people
they know it's the right position. They know it's the obvious.
It's the right
stance.
position. Yeah. And when it was coming from their person, it was the right person. But it's coming from Tulsi, who actually you believe in her convictions, then all of a sudden it's bad because she's not playing when she says that. So that was basically it. All I had to say about it. But did you have anything you want to say before we finish up?
That's it. But I wanted to advertise my Rokfin. Right.
Okay.
Make sure that everyone downloads Rokfin. It's my same as my Twitter username, which is Sofia XLDvar.
The link is in the description.
I'm assuming. Yeah. And then if you'd like to become a Patreon, I'm gonna be reforming my Patreon system because it's for me to do. So I have to change my tiers a bit. So
okay. So make sure you follow Sofia on Rokfin. Make sure you follow her on Patreon, or make sure you add her on Patreon. Both of those links are in the description. I think that's it for me. I'm going to cover some of the Joe Rogan segments later on tonight and tomorrow. So make sure you look out for that. For everybody else, make sure you have a very, very happy Thanksgiving. And don't remember the Pilgrims were white supremacists who killed Native Americans after they helped them. Just want everybody to remember that. So yeah, happy Thanksgiving if you do practice that. For everybody
don't
who doesn't
be grateful
practice
for
it,
the
but
American
says
Empire.
you do, just so you can have something to eat. I feels you. More power to you. It's a recession out here. You got to eat however you can. And with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, thank you all so much for tuning into this live stream segment of Mikasa Says Sukasa. And always remember, more than anything else, find your balance. Peace.